It still amazes me how much Theodore's voice changes whenever he's on camera. It's like he can't decide if he wants to speak at a higher or lower pitch, so he ends up sounding like a boy going in and out of puberty. Alright, Tedheads, today I have something special planned for all of you. I remember muttering to myself, oh god, here we go again. My friend Blake and I. Theodore turned the camcorder my way. I gave a sheepish wave to the camera before Theodore snapped it back to his face. Are going to be playing hide and seek. He immediately threw his free hand in the air to quiet the non-existent laughter of his non-existent audience. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Hide and seek are for the wee boys, and Blake and I are not. Well, actually, Blake is a bit of a wee boy. He turned the camcorder back my way and I did not hesitate to flip him off. Theodore snapped it back towards himself and he leaned in really close. He's just mad because it's true. I rolled my eyes and Theodore forced out an obnoxious snort. Jokes aside, yes, we're playing hide and seek as grown-ass men. Now, before you all start clowning us, let me show you all our chosen arena. He flipped the camera around to show where we were at. There in front of us stood an old, abandoned hospital. And that's right, bitches. We played hide and seek in that spooky, Scooby-Doo looking ass place. Theodore is not completely wrong in his appraisal of the hospital. This place was anything but inviting. Even in its heyday, this building would have looked daunting, not to mention out of place. I mean, who puts a hospital in the middle of the woods? There's not very many people out here in the first place, and the few that are don't need a hospital this large. I mean, this place is massive. The looming facade of the building is so big that Theodore had to take a few steps back to capture the entire thing. Now, here are the rules. Theodore turned the camcorder back towards his face. I'll give Blake 30 seconds to hide. And that should be plenty as this place is as big as his mom. And with that joke, I stopped listening to whatever stupid preamble Theodore had prepared and turned my attention back to the hospital. Most of the windows looked to still be intact and caked in a thick layer of dust. It's a good thing I dressed down for the occasion. Theodore had made fun of me for wearing a red beanie and a flannel, but there's no way in hell I was going to get my good clothes dirty. But this logic didn't stop him from making jokes about how I looked like a miscast for a lumberjack porno. At least I could take solace in knowing his bright white Supreme jacket and $60 neon shoes were about to be ruined. I scanned the hospital for any potentially dangerous areas. Knowing Theodore, he didn't do any research on this place. There were some distinct cracks that slithered up and down the exterior concrete, but nothing that seemed compromising to the overall integrity of the building. That being said, I made a note to avoid any of the higher floors. Alrighty then, and now that I am done explaining all the complexities of hide and go seek, it's time for us to begin. He pointed the camcorder at me and began counting down from 30. I thought Theodore wanted to chew scenery for at least another 2 minutes, so I was a bit taken by surprise. I quickly put on my dust mask and I rushed up the steps of the old hospital. Upon my entrance, I was greeted by a waiting room that was vacant of any chairs. There were 2 hallways from which I could choose. One had shot off to my immediate left and the other one continued straight ahead of me past the reception desk. I decided on the one to the left, as it was at least somewhat illuminated by the meager streaks of light that had broken through the encrusted windows. I was halfway down the hall when I heard, "Wait!" "What?" I yelled back. Theodore emerged from the entrance and was hurrying after me. He had a flashlight in his hand where the camcorder used to be. "We're not actually playing hide and seek," he said. I gave him a bewildered look. "What do you mean, Theodore?" I was beyond annoyed at this point. I thought he wanted to film us playing hide and seek in here for his stupid vlog. But then again, it wouldn't have been Theodore if there weren't a last-minute change of plans. First, I told you to start calling me Teddy in second, or staging this. I don't want to actually wander around this creeptastic place looking for you. His reasoning could have been worse. Really? I asked, making absolutely sure he wasn't going to change his mind again. Yes, look at the bottom of my shoes already. It's like I stepped into a litter box. His bright neon soul had been blotted out by a grungy gray layer of dust. Well, I told you not to wear any nice clothes, you idiot. Theodore immediately laughed after my outburst of anger. I'm sorry, man. With the mask on, it sounds like I'm getting yelled at by Bane. In classic Theodore fashion, he diminished my anger with a joke. Suddenly, I could not speak without hearing the muffled voice of the Batman villain. You think the darkness is your ally? I responded. Theodore burst into another fit of laughter that quickly turned to coughing. Oh shit, man. You can't keep making me laugh in this place. He croaked out between coughs. This mask isn't such a dumb idea now, is it? I patted him on the back to help him along. Yeah, this hospital is dustier than your mother's box. I gave him an extra hard pat on the back for that one. Once we had finally recovered, we powered on our flashlights and we forged ahead. The hallway we were in stretched another 15 feet before veering off to the right, and there were at least 6 rooms that lied ahead of us. We peered into each one, but none of them offered anything of interest beyond faded walls and rusted over bed frames. When do you think this place was built? Theodore asked me as we rounded the corner and entered a nearly identical hallway. Well, with the Art Deco exterior, polka-dotted tile floors, and uniform interior, this hospital screams the 1930s. My observation seemed to amuse Theodore. And the fact that you know all of that screams I'm a virgin. The dark couldn't conceal his shit-eating grin. The camera's off, Theodore. You don't need to keep making shitty jokes. I waited a snarky comeback, but thankfully, one did not come. Instead, I got a very delighted gasp. Oh my god, does that say what I think it says? Before I could ask what Theodore had seen, he fell into another coughing fit. With him temporarily unable to clarify, I was forced to scour for myself. I scanned the hallway for any details that might differentiate from the last, but I found nothing. What was it? I asked him. With Theodore still hacking up his lungs, he answered by pointing the ray of his flashlight right at it. He illuminated a door, which at first glance looked no different than the others lining the hallway. It was a scratched up wooden door with a frosted glass window, complemented by a layer of dust. As I looked closer, I began to see the unique variation that excited Theodore. There was black lettering scrolled across the door's window. The letters were partially peeled and faded, but were nonetheless readable. It looked to read, morgue. Oh shit. I failed to hide my own elation at this discovery. Theodore, having finally recovered from his second coughing fit, took the first step towards the door. I joined him and I helped him clean off the door's window once we had reached it. With the layer of dust no longer obscuring the letters, there was no doubt in my mind that it did indeed say morgue. Oh, this is so spooky. Theodore reached into his bag and pulled out his camcorder. Once it was recording, he turned and gave me a nod. Would you do the honors? I rolled my eyes at his theatrics and I grabbed the grimy brass doorknob. I began to turn it and only got halfway before being met with resistance. I put some extra force into it and I felt whatever was jamming the mechanism give way. I turned the doorknob fully and I tugged. The door opened with a resounding creak. There on the other side were concrete stairs that went down about 5 steps before being absorbed by the darkness. Theodore and I shined our flashlights down and saw that the stairs went about another 15 steps before reaching a landing. Ooh, and it's the basement. Theodore looked at me with camcorder still in hand and gave me another nod. A silent and dickish way of commanding me to go first. I begrudgingly took the first steps downward and made sure to keep my light focused on my feet. You would definitely not want to fall down these steps. The cold hard concrete had been seriously worn and was now sprinkled with jagged features that were sure to cause harm to anybody who met them with even an inkling of force. Once I reached the bottom, I did a full sweep of the room with my flashlight. The first thing the light revealed was a grungy metal table fused into the concrete floor. It doesn't take a coroner to know that's where the bodies got cut up. I peered past that table to see 2 more carbon copies of the table in front of me, and further past that at the end of the room was an open elevator shaft. It's in retrospect I realized that that's how they got the bodies down here. The shrill grind of metal caused my heart rate to double in an instant. I snapped my flashlight to the right to reveal Theodore, standing in front of an open cold chamber. "I think I found your hiding spot." Theodore looked like he had just struck gold. "Hell no, man. I'm not going in that thing," I loudly protested, going full Bane in the process. "But I thought the darkness is your ally." I ignored Theodore's admittably funny callback and momentarily took off my dust mask to curtail any more Bane jokes. "No way. That had dead people in it, man." I shined my light on the cold chamber's table to reveal all the dirt, grime, and God knows what else that covered it. It hasn't had anybody dead on it in like 80 years probably. Theodore's attempt to make the cold chamber sound not that bad made it sound much, much worse. That doesn't make it better at all. My yell was cut short by a coughing fit of my own. Theodore thankfully stopped his $1 million pitch and he helped me. After about 15 seconds of coughing and heaving, I put the dust mask back on and I looked Theodore straight in the eyes. "I'm not doing it, alright? Please?" "No." Theodore threw his arms in the air. "Fine." He backed up to the cold chamber and he closed it. Even though I knew it was coming, I still winced at the sound of the door shutting. "Will you at least hide somewhere down here?" Theodore pleaded. As creepy as the place was, I didn't want to drag this out any longer than I had to. "Sure." I gave him a shallow nod. "I'll hide in the..." I turned around and scanned the room with my flashlight. Besides more cold chambers, autopsy tables, and the empty elevator shaft, there wasn't really any hiding spots down here that weren't disgusting or dangerous. My light then fell upon a large, white medicine cabinet in the far left corner of the morgue. It looked to be in surprisingly good condition. A medicine cabinet. Theodore's eyes lit up a little at the sight of the hulking cabinet. He and I approached it and I found the bottom shelf large enough for me to fit in. We opened the bottom and I was shocked to see that it was relatively clean in comparison to everything else. I scrunched down and I tucked my body into the cupboard. I had to say that I'd fit better than I'd expected. "I told you you're a wee boy," Theodore joked again. I gave him one last glimpse of my middle finger as he closed the cupboard doors. I heard his footsteps echo back to the concrete stairs and the door closing behind him. After about a straight minute of silence, I turned off my flashlight and I did my best to get comfortable. I sat there hoping that Theodore wouldn't take too long. He had already gotten plenty of B-roll footage, so I was thinking that he'd better head straight for me once he's done with his countdown. I decided to start my own countdown to pass the time. 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25. I made it to 14 when my train of thought was interrupted. And that same sound from the cold chamber. For a moment, all rational thought had left me. The shrill grind of metal had stolen my composure and left me in a frozen state of fear. The only discernible thing going through my mind right now was, what the fuck was that? It took me longer than I would like to admit for a sensible thought to come to mind. Maybe the cold chamber opened up on its own, I thought. I mean, it is old and Theodore probably didn't shut it right. The idea sounded reasonable enough for me to have felt at least a tad bit relieved. A part of me wanted to peek my head out and confirm that it was just a case of a drawer creep. But then the other part of me was like, fuck no, wait for Theodore. I decided to play it safe and do just that. I tried to get back to counting to pass the time, but I found myself stopping to listen to every sound that I thought I heard. I swore I was just hearing tiny creaks, but they were just soft enough for doubt to cloud my mind. Eventually, I heard a sound that I knew for sure was real. "Blake, I swear to God if you're down here," Theodore yelled down the steps. I couldn't believe it, but I was actually happy to hear that interpubescent voice. "Oh, Blake, you dick. Hiding in the morgue." The proximity of his voice confirmed that he was fully down the steps. Wait, is that... No, Blake, you didn't. I imagined he was looking at the open cold chamber and thinking I had changed my mind and hidden there. "Blake, you animal, you did..." The immediate pause in his voice signaled to me that something was wrong. "No! Fuck no, no!" I heard Theodore's screams retreat up the concrete steps. What? Is he messing with me? And not wanting to be left down there alone, I lurched out of the cupboard and I shouted after him, "Theodore!" I reached the other side of the morgue and I noticed something blinking lying on the floor. I looked down and I felt the weight of the world fall on top of me. It was Theodore's camcorder. He wouldn't have dropped that if he was fucking around. "Blake, get out of there!" Theodore screamed down from atop the steps. The screech of the cold chamber behind me sent me up those stairs with a do-or-die urgency. I heard something behind me, but I didn't dare look back. I kept my head forward and my legs moving. Every step I took felt like a mile, and the dim light ahead of me now looked brighter than heaven. I was almost to the top when my right foot slipped out from underneath me. My right knee crashed down into the hard concrete stair and let out a resounding pop. I felt something grab at my head and I instinctively leapt over the last few steps and into the hallway. I didn't dare look back. I started off in the direction of the hospital's entrance and I saw that Theodore had already rounded the first corner. I was closing the gap between us when a shooting pain in my knee caused me to lose control as I approached the turn. I tried to stay on my feet and I ended up hopping a few steps on my left leg before slamming hard into the window. A cloud of dust rained down on top of me, and I made the dire mistake of taking in a large gulp of air. My body began to sputter and wheeze as my lungs attempted to expel the tainted air. I pushed myself off the wall and I fell right onto my stomach. The force of the fall knocked the oxygen out of me and I began to desperately crawl forward, all the while hacking and heaving. I got up on my left leg and I sluggishly limped down the hallway. I was about halfway before I fell again. Thankfully, I was able to catch myself with my hands and I used the momentum to launch myself back up onto my feet. In the corner of my eye, I saw a hazy silhouette, but I still did not dare to take a chance and look back. The sight of the hospital lobby gave me the focus that I needed. I gritted my teeth and I put all the weight onto my left leg. With a surge of adrenaline rushing through my entire body, I was able to muster up enough of a pace to clear the hospital entryway before collapsing. I heard the roar of a car engine and I saw Theodore's Mustang rolling up. "Get in!" Theodore threw the passenger door open and I could see his eyes were locked on something behind me. I used my last ounce of strength to throw my body into the vehicle. Theodore didn't wait for me to get fully inside before he started peeling out of the overgrown parking lot. I was able to pull my feet in before the momentum forced the car door shut. A sublime sense of relief washed over me as we sped away. I caught a brief glimpse of the silhouette in the mirror. Its elongated form stood there watching us from the hospital steps. In its right hand was a bright red beanie. Thank God I didn't look back.